Okay, let's get the show on the road. All right, hello and welcome to this live session. So this is the first time I am doing this on YouTube. Interested to see how it goes. All right, I hope you're ready and excited to go. Let's do this. I want to get right into it. In case you can't hear me or something else goes wrong, let me know in the chat. I can't see the chat. But yeah, I'm also, by the way, I'm doing this on my own. So currently I won't be able to keep up with the chat. As I'm talking, I have a couple of questions I'm going to go through, and then I'm going to try to take a look at the chat and we'll have Q&A. But let's start with, I highlighted some of the, we got like 500 comments or something on the last two videos, mainly on the site. If you've been watching on YouTube, we also uploaded on YouTube. We also got a bunch of comments there, but mainly on the site. It's been crazy. Tons and tons of questions came in, and yeah, it's great to see that everyone's excited about this topic, and some really good questions were asked. So I want to get into that. So we are going to talk about mainly the topics I covered in the last two videos, which are the rapid course launch strategy, right, with the launch map of how you can basically solopreneur launch an online course, and the pricing sweet spot, where I talk about, you know, why choosing a price point around $200 is ideal, especially for selling online courses. And the thing is, you know, I made both of these videos, or both of them are relatively long videos, right? In the time, you know, in the age of like the internet 15-second attention span, right? A 20-minute video is pretty long video, right? And both of them are about 20 minutes long. But even in such a video, it's quite difficult to actually thoroughly cover a topic such as a product launch or or pricing strategy. I mean, you can write whole books about both of these things, right? So and I really appreciate, so I'm aware, on the one hand, I'm aware that like a lot of things went unsaid, right? Even in a 20-minute video, I can't really cover everything. But I try to kind of get the most important stuff across. But I also really appreciate a lot of the questions that came in really show that, you know, people are paying attention, they're thinking, and they're like, hold on, what about this, what about that? So I really appreciate that. I really love that. And that's why I'm doing this stream. That was actually not planned, but because, you know, so much discussion happened around these videos, I thought this might be a good way, you know, instead of making another kind of, you know, scripting another video or whatever, which takes a bit longer, all the editing and so on, I thought, let's just jump on a live stream and answer some questions. So that's what we're doing today. So let me start with kind of highlighting some of the most commonly asked questions that we got. And the first thing I want to talk about is the launch map, right? So this is the first video where I walk through this launch map, which is basically an exact map and an exact layout of the steps I took to launch an online course. And yeah, we'll walk through this. So as a very brief reminder, right? It starts with, we send an email, and ask people if they're interested in a topic, and if they are, we announce a product as a pre-launch. So before the product is made, we send people to a sales page and we take pre-orders for the product. And if these two steps work, that tells us, okay, there's interest, that validates our idea and our business, basically, right? And we start with a simple sales page, people can buy it, and there's a thank you page and the survey, and we use all the information that we gather here to learn exactly what we need to sell inside our course. And then there's a series of emails which simply link to some free content, and there's kind of almost incidental marketing. You can think of this as like incidental marketing, right? The emails and the content are not there to push people into buying the thing. They're just to share valuable content, and it kind of incidentally also links to the sales page. And we do this as a launch sequence, final reminder. This ends up in a bunch of people buying the course. So on this, and I'm not going to, I don't want to repeat the content here, so that's just a kind of a brief reminder. But watch the video where I walk through all of this if you're not 100% familiar with this. So next up, let me switch in here real quick. Okay, next up we have one of the first questions I want to address here. Okay, some people are saying there's no video. Seems to me that it says here, YouTube is telling me stream health is green. Everything should be fine. So can you guys see me on screen right now? What's going on? Okay. All right, thank you. So sorry about that. I do want to make sure that this works, but it seems to be working. Okay. So let's go ahead with the questions, right? The most commonly asked question I got was basically, okay, what if I want to do this, but I don't have an audience, I don't have a mailing list? Because of course, okay, a product launch is generally done to a mailing list. Like you launch your product to your audience. And in my case, also to clarify, right, the goal here wasn't to do like the best possible, like the most successful possible product launch I could do. The goal was to create a product launch as a solopreneur. And that's one of the reasons why I didn't launch this to the Thrive Themes audience, which is, my largest business, my largest audience. I launched this. And of course, it's true that if you don't have a list at all, then there will be no possibility to just run a launch sequence like this, and certainly not on the timeline, right? So the timeline this was done on was about 2 weeks. So it went from 2 weeks from idea to open cart, I think, was it? Or 2 weeks? No, it was about 2 weeks to the actual course launch. So the whole thing was done in about 2 weeks, right? And if you don't have an audience yet, then of course you can't launch to 0 people inside of 2 weeks. So let's talk about what you can do if you don't have an audience, or if you have a small audience. And actually, let me address that first, right? My very first product launch, that's many years ago now, but my very first product launch was done to a mailing list of about 500 people. And this was, so you don't need to have a massive mailing list. And I think that's an important thing to remember, right? It's not like you have to have you have to have thousands of people on a mailing list in order to make a product launch work. Of course, essentially, the more people you have and the more engaged they are, the more money you'll make almost immediately from a launch like this. But I want to emphasize that, nobody should be thinking to themselves, okay, I have to build up an audience of like 10,000 people before I can even think about launching. That's just not the case. So back in the day, my very first product launch was done to a list of less than 500 people. And I'd spent a few months doing just like content marketing and stuff to build that audience. So that's the first thing. But let's go into some more details on what can be done if you start from 0. So first of all, the hack, right? The fastest way to do this is to partner up with someone. So to partner up with someone who has an audience, where you basically have a deal with them where you say, look, I create a product, and I can create the product, and I can do the marketing, and I can do all that stuff. I deliver the thing, and you have the audience. Now, I have done this in the past in a couple of different ways. I have been the person. So I've partnered up a couple of times with someone where I've had, whereas the role is split, right? I have had a partnership where I was doing the marketing and I had the audience and someone else had the product. And that's how we partnered up, right? So from that person's perspective, they basically just came to me with a product and I did the rest. And of course, not to say that they didn't do anything. The product is as important, right? I've also done partnerships, excuse me. I've also done partnerships where they're more like affiliate partnerships, where it's like, okay, you have an audience and I'm going to make a special offer. I'm going to make a specific offer for your audience, right? And we pitch that on a webinar or something like that. And essentially what I'm saying here is what you want to do is you want to do networking, because the goal is that you can basically do this launch sequence to someone else's audience. That's the goal, right? So you want to find someone who has an audience but doesn't have their own product or doesn't have a recent product or something like that. And let me be clear about this, right? This is a tactic that's, you know, it requires it requires some finesse to make this happen, right? So what I mean is, this is not the kind of thing where you can kind of just download an email template, use, you know, BuzzSumo or whatever it's called to automatically generate a list of 1,000 prospects and blast them all with the same email, and then that's how you get a partner. This is not going to work like that. Like, you have to do actual networking. So you have to, you're not going to have great success if you approach someone who has an audience and right away, like, your first message is, hey, let's partner up. I've got a product. I want to do a launch to your list. They're going to be like, hold on, who are you? Right? So this is something where you have to do some networking, where ideally you get to know someone a bit. Maybe you find you find some ways in which you can get in contact with someone. And because I think it's important for a partnership like this that you get kind of a feel for each other, right? You have to have a feel for what kind of person is this kind of thing going to work out. And so you have to invest some time into actually building connections, right? Actually reaching out to people, finding people, getting to know them before you make that ask, and before you even decide, you know, is this the right audience for me? Is this going to work out? Because it's also from your side, because the idea would be that you split the profits, right? You say you bring the audience, I bring the marketing and the product, and we split the profits. And for, you know, if you do this well, for the person with the list, this is a great deal. For the person with the audience, this is an amazingly good deal, right? So let me see, we still have issues. No, from my end, it should be fine. All right, it seems like, sorry about the interruption again. Every once in a while, someone in chat says, you know, they can't hear the audio or something's not right. But yeah, from my side, everything seems fine. So I'm just going to keep going and hope for the best. Anyway, so yeah, this can be a great deal if you have the right partner. Also, depending on your niche, I would really look for influencers, right? This is kind of a new thing where, yes, and especially influencers, often they don't have their own stuff, right? Influencers will sometimes have great reach, and sometimes have great reach without having a lot of marketing savvy themselves, right? And they don't do much other than maybe have some sponsorship deals and so on. And for them, for an influencer, this can also be massively lucrative, and you can basically bring something to someone, right? Someone who just does the social media game, basically, and they're getting some sponsorships and things. You can actually bring an amazing deal to someone like that, where it's like, listen, we're actually, instead of just posting social media stuff with sponsored content and making some money that way, let's actually engage your audience. Let's do something specifically for your audience, which isn't just, oh, look at this cool brand, but it's like, hey, I'm making a course for you guys, right? That can be an amazing deal. So, and this is also something that, this is the kind of tactic I really like, because it's not one of these copy-paste tactics, right? This is a high leverage tactic that requires some finesse, and it's not something that, you know, 1,000 other people read on some random blog, you know, and can just like copy paste and spam the world with this tactic. It just doesn't work. It is something that a lot of people will be too shy to do, or will be too lazy to do it properly, or, you know, most outreach emails are horrible, so most people just don't put enough work into it. And I love this kind of tactic, right? I love the tactic because this is something where there's just not a lot of competition. There's very few people out there who are doing something like this right. And so it's a great tactic to use. And this is one of the quickest routes, right? That this is basically, if you can pull this off with a good partnership, you can go from a standing start to launching to an audience of thousands of people within a few weeks. Now, that's probably the fastest way to get there. So that's why it's number one on my list. So, next tactic. Here we go. Okay, the next tactic is use inbound marketing 101 to build your audience. So like I mentioned before, right, my very first product launch, my very first own product launch was done to an audience of about 500 people. How did I build that audience? I wrote blog posts. I did a bit of SEO to attract some traffic. I gave away ebooks and mini courses, mainly ebooks in the beginning. So where, you know, I would, with opt-in offers, right? The most normal thing you can do. So people would come to my blog because I wrote something that's relevant about a keyword, and they would see an opt-in form that says, get my free report that teaches you how to do XYZ, opt in here. It's the most normal thing in the world, right? And I did a bunch of other things. Like, I don't even know all the things anymore that I did, but I just did the most standard inbound marketing that you can think of, right? Content marketing, a bit of guest blogging. I never did much guest blogging. I'm not sure if I did. I don't think I did any before my launch, so that didn't even come into it. But just if you go right now, if you Google right now, you know, 5 ways to get traffic to your blog, I did those 5 things. The 5 most generic things you can think of, that's what I did. And this is not an amazingly high leverage or time effective strategy, right? It's not the fastest way to grow a list, but it works, right? It works. And whatever, you know, nowadays maybe I would do some things differently because, you know, maybe nowadays I would emphasize more YouTube marketing, or maybe depending on your niche, maybe you want to do some Instagram marketing or whatever, right? It's kind of, that's quite niche dependent. But what I'm saying is just doing the work, just doing the 101 default audience building work and putting opt-in forms on your website to get email addresses. Just do that for a while and make, you know, get a few hundred people on your list. And another thing that also came up in the comments or in the questions is the question of, well, could I run ads, right? Could I, if I don't have an audience, could I just run some ads to this whole launch sequence? And yes, you can run ads, but don't run ads to your main offer. So what I wouldn't do is try to do this whole thing, you know, try to do the whole launch sequence just paying for ads. That would probably be a very expensive experiment. And so what I would do instead, so the reason I say run ads but not your main offer is you can run ads to build an audience faster, but then you would run ads to things like your content, which has an upgrade to get people onto your list. You would run ads to landing pages for your opt-in offers, landing pages for very low price products, maybe, you know, tripwire offers. So that's what I mean by not your main offer, because sending people to a sales page for a $200 course is not the best way to build an audience, right? That's a good way to burn some money, but it's not the best way to build an audience. So that's why I wouldn't recommend doing that primarily. All right, so that's the main things you can do on the audience building side. So now the other thing I want to address here is that sometimes the question is, you know, what do I do if I don't have an audience? But sometimes that question also flips into something else, which is like, but Shane, this only works for you because you have a huge audience. This only works for you because people trust you and know you. This only works for you because something. And I want to warn against this, because some of the questions, not many, but some of the questions were just excuses, really. Because yes, of course, yes, I did have a mailing list to start with. I did have an audience to start with. But, you know, I didn't, you know, like, where did that come from? I didn't inherit an audience, you know, from my parents, right? I wasn't born into audience wealth. This didn't happen to me by accident. Like, so what I want to warn against here is if you see me do a case study like this, where it's like, look, here's how you can do a launch like this and have some success all by yourself. I want to warn against kind of just finding an excuse about why that can't work for you. You know, I mean, and you know, the thing is that you can always find an excuse. You can always find some excuse. You can always manufacture some reason why this works for me and not for other people. And really, over the years, I've heard some insane excuses that people give me, like as a justification for why what I do only works for me but doesn't work for them, right? And I bring this up because I think this is one of the most important entrepreneurial things is kind of just the habit of taking action anyway and not waiting for someone to give you the exact recipe, right? Don't wait for someone to basically bring you the recipe that is the case study of I'm exactly you in exactly your position with exactly your background in your country, in your niche, and everything is exactly the same, and that's what I did. And then you're finally like, okay, now I can do it, right? Don't wait for that. I think one of the most important entrepreneurial things is to, you see someone do X over here and you're like, okay, I'm going to mine this for everything I can take from it. And sure, yes, some of the stuff is not going to work. But I'm going to mine it for everything I can do, and I'm going to apply it over here to my thing, right? That's such an important entrepreneurial quality. Like, don't spend your time, explaining to yourself why this is not going to work. Spend your time figuring out how you can make it work, because you're absolutely right that the parameters within which this thing happens make a difference. Of course, I'm doing a productivity course for entrepreneurs in English, selling it in US dollars, and if you're doing a course about something totally different in Spain, charging euros, the parameters change, right? And some of the things you can't just copy over one-to-one. But it's such an important entrepreneurial skill to not let that get in your way, right? You figure it out. You figure out how to fill those gaps, and don't wait for the perfect instructions to come along and save you. And one thing I want to mention here is that one of the things I want to highlight is, and one of the reasons I made this map and I did this case study, right? I provided this launch map that shows how I put together this whole launch. I want to encourage you to focus on building this product and building this funnel. Like, focus on getting to the point where you have something like this. Because in my opinion, before you get there, before you have a funnel that is focused around a specific product, none of the business and marketing stuff you do is real. So let me explain what I mean by that. I've noticed that there's a huge difference in learning, right? If you're trying to learn marketing, there's an absolutely gigantic difference between everything you do that's kind of standoffish and theoretical, and things you do that are, for selling your own thing. This is one of the reasons why I advocate so strongly selling your own product. Because this is what I did, right? I did affiliate marketing before. I had some AdSense sites and so on, and there was already an element of learning by doing there, right? That I took action and I had profitable affiliate websites and somewhat profitable AdSense websites. There was an aspect of learning by doing, but my marketing skills stepped up so much once I started selling my own stuff. It's just a totally different thing to have, instead of just being the intermediary where it's like, okay, some traffic comes in, I send them off, they click on ads or whatever, and that's it. The moment you start building out a marketing thing around your own product, you step up your game so much, because so many marketing things happen after someone clicks on the affiliate link, after someone clicks on the ad, which is no longer your responsibility. And the same is true for many of these, many of these kind of passive income business models are a bit like that, right? And a lot of people seek that thing where they can kind of keep a distance. They don't really want to get involved. They just want to make some money, right? And this is not a great way to make progress. The moment you start, even doing things like content marketing and SEO and so on to attract traffic, the moment you have your own product, you start learning what makes people buy this product, who's the ideal customer for this product, who really benefits from this product. And it gives a focus to everything else you do. It suddenly gives focus to the content you create, because now you know who you're talking to and you know what they need, and you can connect the dots between, how can I reach the right people? How can I give some value to them? How can I build a relationship with them? And how can I then lead them on to, how can I convert them into customers, right? And I want to encourage you to get to the point where you have a funnel, like start building that funnel. Don't procrastinate by telling yourself you have to build a massive audience first. Start building that funnel as soon as possible. Get yourself in a position where you're starting to build this machine, right? You're starting to build this engine where there's a main offer somewhere. Maybe there's some smaller offers that you can insert. Maybe there's a higher end offer you can insert that's like an upsell. And you start driving, you start optimizing this little engine. This is like a revenue engine for yourself, right? You start doing content marketing for that, targeted for that. You start running ads for that. You start running A/B tests and so on. It makes your work so much more real, and it teaches you so much more about marketing and business once you get into that. And if you're still like, sitting around trying to build an audience, and then at some point, if that's still kind of a distant horizon, at some point maybe I'll make an offer, maybe I'll make a product. Like, I think that's doing it the wrong way around. All right, next up, another frequently asked question. Was what if I can't create the content for the launch and the course that quickly? So one of the things about the rapid launch is that I didn't plan the content in advance. I had a bunch of notes for what I could put in a productivity course, and I had well, that's basically it. That's basically it. I had a whole bunch of notes about productivity, right? That I knew I could turn into a course somehow. And then I didn't do a lot of advanced planning. So I basically started selling my product to people. And then based on their feedback, I started improving my sales page. And I started sorting my notes and deciding what this course would actually look like. And based on the feedback, I created content. So I created a piece of blog content, sent that to my list, got a bunch of comments, decided based on that what the next piece of content would be, and so on. And of course, the advantage I have here is that I can fairly comfortably create and publish a video and blog post in one day. So I could easily do that and also do other work next to that. And I know that that's a skill that I've acquired. I know that for a lot of people, creating a video and a blog post takes longer than this. And so, some questions asked about this were, how do I go about this if I can't create content that quickly? And also for the course content, right? Like, once I had a good idea of what needed to go in the course, I think in the beginning of the course release, I was publishing something like 4 or 5 videos a day. So the lessons came very quickly, right? I didn't keep people waiting. Now, if you don't have this level of skill of content creation, here are a couple of things to do. So what you can do is you can plan out some more of this and do more of it in advance. You can for sure do that. But my main advice here would be to really embrace this kind of raw, off the cuff, low production value video. So, like I said in my launch map video, I recorded the sales video and all the content videos for the pre-launch for the sequence. I used just a GoPro camera to record all of that. And I was either like just walking and talking with the camera, or I just put it on a tripod and I was talking to the camera. I was doing it outdoors, so you just like garden in the background. And that's a certain kind of video, right? There's a certain kind of video where the whole feeling of that video and the way I try to think of it is like I'm talking to a friend, right? It's like, hey, I have something really important to tell you. Here are a couple of things that I really need you to know about this topic. And if a friend asks me for advice about productivity, I don't write a script, right? It's like I listen to them and then I sit them down and I'm like, okay, here's what I think you need to do. This is the type of content I made. And it's like embrace the low production quality. It's more a feeling of talking to a friend than it is a feeling of, oh, this, here's this super highly produced video content. And in fact, okay, if you look at, this is actually a good contrast, right? If you look at the videos I created for this launch map, so the last 2 videos I published, those are the opposite of that. Those are high production quality videos. Well, the second one, maybe not so much. But the first one is an example of a high production quality video, right? it's kind of very well paced, right? It's very deliberate. I've crammed a ton of information into just 20 minutes. That doesn't happen just, off the cuff. And if you watch the video, there's constantly stuff going on, right? There's constantly animations, there's constantly annotations. Everything is like well illustrated, well structured. That's a video that also takes me more than a day to make, right? That's a high production quality video, and that can be a good thing to do. But it's totally different, like what we're doing right now. This is low production quality, right? There's no script here. I wrote down the most commonly asked questions, and now I'm answering them, right? And this is a different kind of feeling, and I think what's important is this is not necessarily worse, right? This is different, but it's not worse. What makes low production quality video bad is if you try to hide the fact that it's low production quality. So if you have, I don't know, you know it when you see it, right? You have to embrace the thing that this is like raw, me talking to you. It's like this raw, honest kind of thing, right? You have to embrace that, and then it works. Don't try to combine the two. Basically, don't try to make a shaky phone cam video, but then also have some kind of polished elements and music in the background and stuff. That's weird. That doesn't work. So to make this answer shorter, basically challenge yourself to make content faster and embrace the kind of raw, low production quality content, because that can be good content. And especially if you can get passionate about something, that's super valuable, right? For this kind of video format, it's really good if you can get yourself kind of riled up about something. And by the way, that's not really my style, right? You know me, I'm not like a super emotional kind of person. But even so, when I talk about productivity or when I talk about business stuff, I tend to get into it, right? And that's something that comes across. And if you're reading off a script, that's very difficult to do. Like, you have to be a good actor, basically, to keep up that kind of authenticity while reading a script. And this is one of the reasons why I recommend not writing and memorizing or writing and reading off of a script, because that will turn most people who will talk about their topic animatedly. If you put them in front of a teleprompter or give them a script, it turns them into like these stiff zombies where it's like, oh my God, I'm supposed to say this. What do I do with my hands, right? That's not good, right? So that's also an important thing to keep in mind, where keeping it quick and having to produce the stuff quickly can actually make your videos better because it comes across as more authentic. Another thing for creating the content itself, so creating the course. One thing I did that I can recommend, this is a long time ago, but I did this once for a course where I had to deliver a course on a tight deadline, and I had also pre-sold it. And the way I delivered the course was through webinars. And I think it's a bit of a hack. So it's not like no work at all anymore, but I find that it is easier to deliver a lot of content. So if you think of, all the content in your course is probably several hours of content. I think it's less work intensive to deliver the content in, let's say, 3 or 4 2-hour webinars. And and so you put together like a slide deck for those webinars, and you go through them, and you can get a lot of teaching done without having to plan out every single detail. And so if you can't deliver a course, because actually one of the questions I need to answer here, I think it's important that you don't keep people hanging for too long, right? You don't want to get people to buy your course and then be like, okay, it's going to take like 6 weeks before you get anything. That's not good. So definitely you want to deliver quickly. And so to do that, webinars can be really good. I also did one webinar, by the way. The course started with a webinar. So that means that right away there's one big chunk of content. But like I said, in the past once I delivered a course in the form of webinars. Now, another great advantage of doing it with webinars is that there's a live component. And so it's a great way to develop version 1 of your course, right? You have your course, you do webinar number 1, you deliver your content, and then you spend some time doing Q&A, and you see what questions people have, and you answer those questions, you see the comments that people have, and that will then shape the next lesson, that will shape the next webinar, and it kind of gets that feedback loop going right away. So this is a great way to rapidly launch a course. You do your first course launch, you do that as a series of webinars. And out of that series of webinars, you'll do a ton of learning, which you can then turn into a more polished and a higher quality course. Because for sure, a webinar isn't as polished as like a series of pre-recorded lessons. But if you do the webinars first, then your lessons are going to be way better because you already know what questions come. You can already anticipate where people are at, and you can make lessons that help solve people's problems more effectively. So that is another thing that I would do in order to accelerate like the delivery of the course. Next up. Oh, this is an important one as well. Here the question is, what happens if we don't get any interest in the first bit here? So as a quick reminder, right, it starts by sending this email, which basically in my case asks people, hey, do you want to learn about productivity? Would you be interested in getting a pre-launch deal for an upcoming productivity course? And people who click a link are tagged as interested in productivity. And this is the first validation step, but the second validation step is, do people buy the course? But what happens if here I don't get interest, right? What happens? So in my case, I got a few thousand people to click on this link. But what happens if you send this and like 12 people click on this link, right? So now if you have 12 people who are interested, it's not worth doing this whole theater here to try and sell a course to 12 people. Because even if you do really well, you're only going to sell like 5 copies, right? So what do we do about this? Well, yeah, let's talk about that. What do we do if people don't indicate interest, right? So what I would have done, so first of all, this is one of the ways in which you can really mitigate your risk here. Because if only a small number of people click on that link, then I can just cancel the launch, right? I'm under no obligation because most people won't notice. I've just told people, hey, you only get information about this launch if you click this link. Most of them didn't click the link. If I cancel the launch, most people will never know. So there's no real risk there, right? So again, if only like 12 people click on that link, I send an email to those 12 people and say, listen, I wanted to do this product launch, but clearly I'm missing the mark here. Sorry about that, but this is not going to happen right now. It's no big deal, right? And people will understand. So that's the first thing, right? You don't have to worry basically about this. That's one of the ways in which you can save yourself from wasting time, right? You're not going to build a course for 12 people. And then what do you do next? Well, you've got to find out. What's going on. So one of the things you can do is talk to those few people who clicked on the link, and you can try to find out how are they different from my other subscribers. What's different about them. And so one of the things you can do, and this is a favorite tactic of mine, is just customer development calls. So I will just invite people, and if you've been following me, you might have gotten an email or two like that, where we just invite people to say, hey, are you willing to talk to me or one of my team on Skype? And then we just have a call with people, and we ask them things like, what's your business? What are you currently working on? What are some problems you have? What do you like about our products? What do you hate about our products? And we just do that to learn what's going on, right? So this is something you could do as well. You can ask the people who clicked on the link to join you on a call, and you can ask a bunch of people who didn't to join you on a call. Also, you could go into your email segmentation there a bit and see if you can find highly active subscribers, so subscribers who normally are engaged but didn't click on this link, and ask them for an interview. And because my goal here would be, I need to find out, do I need to change the offer, or do I need to find a different audience, right? So in my case, productivity is something I'm passionate about. I want to teach productivity. And so if there's no interest for this in my audience, I would try to find out, well, is there a different angle that I have to take, right? Maybe the course has to be about, instead of how to be more productive as an entrepreneur, maybe the course has to be, maybe the angle has to be different, right? Maybe the angle has to be something more specific, such as maybe I have a lot of content marketers on my mailing list. And if I make the offer to say that how to create more content more quickly without wasting tons of time, maybe that would get a lot of interest. And I could teach much of the same stuff, right? Because, writing articles is work, and I teach people how to do work more productively. So I could teach much of the same material and adjust some of it around content marketing, and that would be one solution, right? Or I could look for, well, how do I attract the right people, or how do I partner up with someone who has a list of people who are the right people, and so on. So yeah, those are the things I would do. I would start talking to people. I would see if I can adjust the offer for my existing audience, and I would see if I can find a different audience who want the thing that I can offer. Okay, what else do we have? Let's go back to the slide here. Here's another one. This is also a question, but also a bit of an excuse. So some people said, okay, this only works if you have an established personal brand and an audience and long-time fans and so on, right? Once again, I had an existing audience. I have an existing audience, and I launched to them. Now, what does that mean for, but here's the thing. The question implied here is that even if you have an audience, even if you have a mailing list, if you don't have, a personal brand, and you don't have like passionate fans and so on, this still is not going to work. And again, that's just not true, because look at your own buying behavior. Right? Of course, sometimes we buy things from people from people and companies and brands that we know and trust and that we have some kind of a relationship to. But sometimes we buy things where we have almost no clue who made this product, what the company behind the product is, what their views are, whatever. If you look at your own purchasing history, you can see that yes, sometimes these factors are important, but sometimes we buy things simply because they're necessary or they feel necessary. And I'm not talking about impulse buys here, right? Because we're not talking about selling something really, really cheaply. I'm talking about spending a decent chunk of money. But even there, if you look at your purchase history, I bet you that you can't tell me, a rich history of a relationship and fandom with a brand that you bought an expensive product from. Sometimes we buy things just because they are, one, necessary, and two, credible. So in general, and we're going to transition into the pricing question here, because this starts being about pricing. If you sell something at a relatively high price, you have to solve an important problem or help people achieve an important outcome. And if someone has a big enough problem or an important enough desire, and you can with credibility tell them, I can help you solve this problem, or I can help fulfill this desire, you can convince someone in the span of one sales video, like they have never heard of you before, and they see your sales video, and in the span of that video, they're going to be ready to give you $200. But again, if the problem is big enough, or the desire is big enough, and you're credible, right? If you have these three things, you don't need a big personal brand history, blah, blah, blah. And also related to number two, the second video, the one about pricing. This is also why the $200 price tag, or the $200 around that price tag is good, because yes, if you're selling something for $2,000 or $4,000 or $5,000, $10,000, whatever, then this kind of stuff becomes super important, right? It's very rare that anyone is basically going to walk onto a sales page where someone says, blah, 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 give me $2,000. And without kind of doing some background checking, without being like, hold on, who is this? What have they done in the past? What's going on here? They're going to hand over their money. This is going to be a very rare occasion. But at a $200 price point, this is still true. A total stranger, you can convince a total stranger to give you $200 if the problem you solve is big enough, or the desire is big enough, and you're credible with your offer. Now, of course, it helps. It helps people trust you and you have a brand and so on. But again, don't sit around like waiting for this to happen first before you start selling a product. Also, Actually, why didn't I say this first? I should have led with this. Where do you think my reputation comes from? Where do you think my reputation and my personal brand comes from? It comes from selling products. It's primarily what builds this kind of trust, right? It's not people reading the blog post. I mean, that's also good. That also matters. But much more trust and fandom and relationship is built when someone buys one of my courses or one of my software products, but in this case, I'm mainly talking about courses, and they start really engaging, where people are much more engaged with a course than with a blog post. So this is where it comes from. Again, this didn't just like come from out of nowhere. So let's talk about the pricing sweet spot. Basically, I've already started. So the pricing sweet spot, why selling a course for $200 is the best thing. All right. I can't remember what the first question was. Okay. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. So does it have to be exactly $200? No, none of this is exact. None of this is exact because, so first of all, like, of course it could be 197, 199, 199, 99, whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be exactly $200. In different currencies also, it really depends. So some people have asked me, oh, well, is it 200 euros? Is it 200 British pounds? Well, it's kind of a complicated answer, but the honest answer is it's about the buying power, right? It's not about how does it convert into your currency. And it's not about the exact number either. It's about the buying power and the amount of resistance people feel vis-a-vis this price. That's what matters. So you have to you have to basically look at the buying power of your customers and the $200 price tag. The significant thing about the $200 price tag is that it is higher than an impulse purchase, and it's higher than a typical entertainment purchase even, right? Typical entertainment purchase, I'm thinking like a video game where people spend like $60 to $100 to buy a game, right? So it's higher than that, but it's not like 10 times higher than that. So it is lower than a big expense people have like rent, right? It's lower than a big expense, a big, very rare expense like buying a washing machine or something like that, right? So in terms of the kind of buying decision this is, it's the kind of buying decision that you can't just make on a whim, It's not the kind of buying decision that makes no difference to most people's wallets. So it's not like buying a pack of gum, right, where basically you have the same amount of money before and after. For most people spending $200, it makes a difference. They have noticeably less money after that purchase than before. But it's not one of those things, like buying a car or whatever, where it depletes your bank account, right? So that's basically how you have to think of it. So wherever your customer is, that might be a lot more or a lot less value, but it's that kind of, think of it more as how much resistance do people feel to paying this much money. And that's where kind of the $200 point comes from. And again, the important thing here is not the exact number. The important thing here is this graph, the second graph I drew, which was, you have to think about how much work do you have to put into your product in order to get people to be happy with their purchase versus how low is the conversion rate going to be? Or in other words, how much work do you have to do to reach a large enough audience to make a decent amount of sales? That's the important point. And this sweet spot is in the region of $200, and in different countries and different currencies, it's going to be a different number, but there's always going to be that kind of region, right? And yeah, you can think of it like, maybe a good way to think of it is like in comparison. It's twice or three times as expensive as a video game. People buy a lot of video games. I should have thought of more examples of relative prices. I can't think of anything else right now. But think of it more in terms of relative pricing, in terms of buying power. What can people afford to buy? Okay. Then another thing, this is also about precise numbers, right? a lot of comments were like, well, I read that you can get a 2% conversion on a $2,000 product or a 1% conversion on a $3,000 or whatever. And this is, okay, you have to realize that the conversion percentage is almost entirely dependent, or it's just to such a huge degree dependent on the quality of traffic you get. So, for example, in this product launch that I did, I shared the number, right, as 2.14% is the conversion rate on the sales page of the $200 product. But that is the post-launch traffic. During the launch period, the conversion rate was something like 6.5% or even more. I don't know what it was, but it was way higher. It was way, way higher than those 2%. And because that's what happens in a product launch. That's kind of the point of doing a product launch, right? But that's actually an example where it's the same product and the same sales page, but because it's a different audience, the audience is much warmer, it's a different context, there's time scarcity, the conversion rate is way different. And so of course someone can come along and say, hey, I sold a $2,000 product and I got a 2% conversion rate. That's great. It means that you had super warm traffic. You probably sold that to a tiny segment of your most qualified leads, right? Which is great, that's a good thing to do. But I'm just saying, just because someone made that happen, doesn't mean that you can expect a 2% conversion rate if you buy some Facebook ads and send it to a landing page for a $2,000 product. Now, all of these numbers that I use to do this napkin math are basically assuming that you have like semi-warm traffic going to a good sales page with a good offer. But the only thing that really matters is that relative to each other, they are realistic. Because of course you can say, well, yeah, let's say we have a 2% conversion rate on a $2,000 product. Well, if you have super warm, super targeted traffic and you send that traffic to a $200 product, then maybe you'll get like a 10 or 12% conversion rate, right? So relative to each other, the rules that I laid out are still going to be roughly true. And of course, in different niches, it's going to be different and so on and so forth. So really, that's why I also called it back of the napkin math, because we can talk about specific conversion rates in specific circumstances and prices and niches and blah, blah, blah. We can talk about that until the cows come home, right? But the important lesson in what I was talking about is in kind of the rough picture and these graphs I drew. So just to clarify that, right? I'm not talking about exactly $200 and an exactly 2.5% conversion rate or anything like that. Now, I think this might be the last slide. After that, I'm going to take a look at chat here. So another question that came up a lot was basically, how can I sell my product about X for $200? So, how can I sell my product about how to play the piano for $200? And here I want to clarify, the $200 price tag isn't something you can just kind of retrofit onto any product, right? It's not like, oh, I'm currently selling my ebook for $9, I'll just charge $200 for it then. I mean, that's not how it works. So, because the idea is that you can, again, the important graph here is the one where we see how much work does it take to make a product that justifies the price versus how much work does it take to reach the audience. And the idea is that $200 is the price at which you can, as a solopreneur, do the work to create a good enough product and to reach an audience to make a decent amount of money. Like I said before, the important point is really you have to solve a big enough problem or help people achieve a desirable enough outcome, and you have to make them believe that you can help them. So yeah, you can't apply this necessarily to every product or every niche. You should think about, so basically whatever your niche is, you want to think about what is a big enough problem for people to solve. Let me give you an example from my experience, right? I have, so one of the things that I also like productivity. One of the things that I've developed over many years and I'm really interested in is communication techniques. So essentially, how do you communicate clearly? How do you just basically interpersonal communication and the kind of communication I'm doing now, which is like speaking to an audience. Oops. Now, if I made a course which is like the communication skills course for $200, that would be a hard sell. that's a really hard sell. How many people are going around there going, I really need to improve my communication skills, right? That's not many people. So I can't just take this idea of I want to teach communication skills and slap a $200 price tag on it. I have to look at this niche, I have to look at this market of potential people who might benefit from this, and I have to look at what problems do they have, what desires do they have, and how can I apply all of this knowledge I have about communication skills to help them solve this problem. And that could be, for example, and usually that has to do with like being more specific and like niching down, right? So one way to do that might be to look at people who are asked to give presentations in some context, right? A lot of people are terrified of giving presentations, and being able to give a good presentation can be really good for someone's career. And so maybe that would like be my hook, or that would be my angle for who do I talk to and who do I sell this to. Because if I can say, hey, listen, I'm going to teach you how to absolutely crush it with presentations, so that if in the company you work for, that's one of the things, right, where you can see it, people get promoted if they're good at giving presentations. It's like, that's how you become a team lead or something in your company maybe. I'm going to teach you how to do that. I'm going to teach you how to blow people away with these presentations. And that's probably something I could charge $200 for, right? Or a different example could be, maybe, again, I could maybe stay inside my startup and entrepreneurship world. I could maybe say, listen, if you are trying to build a company, you're hiring people, you have to talk to your team members, you have to kind of create a team culture. If you're not communicating clearly, then people are not going to respect you, they're not going to take you seriously, your team's going to fall apart, it's going to be a disaster, right? So if you're a startup entrepreneur, I'm going to teach you how to talk to your team. And again, I'm tying that to a specific problem that a specific group of people have that makes it worth spending $200 on, right? So that is a very important process you have to think about, and an important process that you have to go through in order to arrive at that product you can sell for $200. All right, I think, let's see, what do we have? Oh, one more point I want to make. Also, some people asked about, I have a $10 ebook and I'm selling a $2,000 course. What should I do? The $200 sweet spot, the context for that is that it's your first or your only product. Because it is actually, so it's not like every product you make should be $200. What I'm saying is you should start by selling a $200 course, and then you can start adding stuff on, because a funnel with multiple offers at different price points is almost always going to be more profitable than a funnel with just one product at one price point, no matter what those price points are, right? So, but a $200 course is a really great place to start. So you can think of what you're aiming for is, or a really good funnel, basically, whether that applies to you or not, but a really good funnel could be one where you have a $200 course, maybe a second $200 course on a different topic, and you kind of, in front of that, you have 3 to 5 different lower price offers, maybe some $9 ebooks, or maybe some, free plus shipping books or something like that. Maybe some like $20 to $40 to $50 courses or reports or something like that. And then on the back end, you have maybe a $2,000 course, or maybe a live event for a few $1,000s or something like that. And this is a super powerful funnel because you can get a lot of people in. The cheap offers in the front of the funnel can help you recoup some of your costs for advertising and stuff. And essentially you can spend all that money on more advertising. And then the $200 course is where you start making a lot of money from a lot of people. And then for your most engaged, and also for your most engaged, most ideal customers who also happen to have a lot of money, you make even more money on the back from your high-end offers, right? So that kind of funnel is super powerful, and I wouldn't go there and say, oh, you have to change all these products, all of them need to be $200 courses now, right? So we're talking about like how to start building that kind of information product empire funnel with a $200 course. All right, there we go. This is final slide. Let me go here. So, all right, I hope that was useful. Those were the most common questions. I'm going to switch over to the chat here and see if I can make any sense of this or not. Let me move this up here. Okay. What do we have? This is an interesting question from Anne. How new does the list have to be? What if you've grown the list over a while? So, how new does the list have to be? So, if it's a stale list, that is difficult. What I mean is, if you have a list that you built a long time ago, but you haven't really sent any emails or anything, or very rarely, then that is going to be difficult, or you just have to expect that when you start sending messages, a lot of people will unsubscribe or won't know who the hell you are and so on. If you're marketing the same course several times a year, well, you have to have tagging, right? You have to make sure that you don't market it to people. Probably it's best not to market it to the same people several times a year. Maybe market the same course once a year to the same people and don't market it to customers. Okay, and yes, Tommy's comment right there is also, if you use the interest tagging, that actually solves the problem as well, right? You actually get people to opt in to learning about your course. Okay, this is a great question by Marisa. Wouldn't you start with the $9 ebook before the higher price product? So, only if you're a very productive person. Only if you're not going to procrastinate by doing less important things. Because look, you can start with a $200 course. Of course, it's not the easiest or most comfortable thing to do, but you can do that. And look, my first course, the first course I sold for about $60 or $70 probably, not sure anymore. Eventually, I think I went all the way to $90 eventually. And I think that, if you don't feel very confident in creating good content and teaching online and creating a course, then I think it can make sense to, okay, my inexperience lowers the value of my product, and simply for fairness sake, I'm going to make it a bit cheaper. Because I'd rather have people be surprised and over-deliver rather than people pay $200 and then the course is like, So for sure, the best way to make better courses is to make more courses. And as long as you're always moving forward, right? Make that ebook, but make your $9 ebook. Make it this weekend, right? Get it done, get it out there, start selling it, and then start on the course. And sure, make a cheap course first, in order to kind of build your course creation skills. But get it done, launch it, get it out there. And you probably can notice this, right? I have this impatience where I'm like, what I can't stand is when people have skills and have things they can teach and they bloody sit on them for years. There's so many people who just sit on this stuff for years. And they find so many reasons to not do the thing, right? To not do the thing now because I'm going to do the other thing first. And the reason I encourage going straight into like a launch for a course like this is that this is an important high leverage thing to do. Do the important things first. Here a question is, what's your thoughts on like charging $200 versus $197? And this is actually something I've got on the Thrive Themes marketing team. Someone's doing a bunch of research on that right now, because everyone does 97 or 7 at the end, including Thrive Themes. By the way, we do that too. So it's just a meme, right? At this point, like nobody knows. I mean, I think I probably read I'm pretty sure I read a case study about this about 10 years ago, about why you should have a 7 at the end of your price. So we're trying to do some research on that and see, like, is there any recent testing on this? Does it matter? So we're going to try to find out. Sandra asks, can a bot mailing list work? Don't buy a mailing list. Don't buy a mailing list. Look, if someone sells you a mailing list, I mean, unless they're charging a lot of money, that's usually just not the case, right? When you can buy leads or buy placements on a mailing list, it's usually fairly cheap. And that just means that this mailing list is trash. And also legally, it can be very problematic. Just no, build your own audience. You know, if you spend a bit of time building your own audience of a few hundred people, and it's your audience, that's going to be so much more effective than buying 5,000 trash leads. Okay, oh man, many comments. James says it's because people feel like 7 is a lucky number. I mean, is it? But it's like, it's a lucky number to give me that amount of money. That's fine. I'll take it. Miles asks, what tool are you using to get that cursor trail to show? That's actually Google Slides. That's just a feature in Google Slides. Google Slides is great. I've been using it for my presentations lately. All right. Refunds. Someone asks about refunds. I mean, we process them manually, basically. So if someone asks for a refund, we give them a refund. If it's after the 30-day period, if you have a 30-day refund window, then you just have a canned response, right? You have a canned response, you send them, listen, these are the rules. You saw it on the sales page. You're not getting your money back. Sorry that you didn't like it. And then some of them get very angry, but I mean, that's the thing. You can also do, the thing is, even on like PayPal, you know, after 60 days, you can't process a refund anymore. So I think for online courses, it's not really worth putting up a fight. So my policy for my productivity courses, if you want a refund anytime, and you know, I'm still alive and the internet still exists, you can get a refund. I'm not going to put up a fight about that. For the software, it's more of an issue because, you know, it costs a lot of money to support people, and there we do enforce 30 days. All right. No, Luis, I don't know of a GDPR plugin that does all that. Unfortunately, no. For support desk, I recommend you can take a look at NG Desk, but the current version is not that great. Freshdesk have a free tier that is pretty good. Nice one, JC. So actually, yes. So one question here is how to do a good pricing for a membership website. Well, it really depends on the membership. I don't recommend doing a information membership website in most cases. I think an information membership website, so where it's like, instead of buying a one-time course, you give me $20 every month and I keep churning out content, it's not a great deal. Because most people, like, ultimately, if you do an information membership website, you run it for a while, you will see, let's say you charge $50 a month, and you see that on average your customer lifetime value is going to be $150, let's say. On average, people stay for 3 months. But you have this ongoing obligation of creating stuff for the people to stay on. And if instead of that, you just charge $200 for your course, you make it once, and then your average customer lifetime value is $200, and you don't have to keep churning out content. So in most cases, that's way better. Membership makes sense if there is an element of ongoing service that, and especially if it scales. So, you know, if it's a membership where we provide you a certain kind of resource on an ongoing basis, and the more of the resource you use, the more expensive the membership is, that can make more sense. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, if you want to make videos, check out Loom to record videos and stuff. Loom is pretty good. So I run my course using Sendowl and Thrive Apprentice as the main tools for payment and stuff, and Stripe. Here's a question. How much do we need to spend on marketing to sell an online course? Well, it depends. Do you want to spend money or time or both? I recommend for most marketers to start spending time, not money. Because the world of like PPC and paid advertising is pretty cutthroat. And you've got to have some money to spend to cut your teeth there, to get good at it. It's expensive to get good at it. And so if you don't already have marketing chops and you're not already good at writing copy and creating landing pages and all this kind of stuff, then that's a tough game to win at. But if you sell a course, and well, you can then spend the money you make from selling that course on advertising. And you're also more like, if you start building, you start with building a course and you start selling that course, it's more likely that you can make money off of ads because you have something to sell. And it's also, it's going to help you basically fund your learning curve. All right, so this is an interesting, Jonathan asks an interesting question. What about offering this course live? I teach people to walk with good form or what? And do a 5-week live course. Is $200 cheap for that? So first of all, that's interesting. So, and walking, people can't walk. I've been reading about mobility and stuff. It's true that we can't walk anymore because we sit too much. But anyway, live courses, live courses are a different beast, right? Now, 5-week live course, how many sessions is that? I think, well, I don't know if that's too cheap. Are people paying for it? How are you pitching this? Because I think teaching people how to walk is actually pretty important. Like I said, I do think that actually most people can't walk anymore. They have terrible posture and terrible mobility, and everybody's got screwed up hips and knees and so on. But are people aware of that? Are people aware that this is the problem, that they need to learn how to walk, and are they going to spend $200 on it? So I don't know. I would say that in general, live stuff is more work intensive than online stuff. And so it justifies a higher price based on that, I think. But I don't have, live events. Have I sold any live events? I don't think I've sold. I think that's one of the few things that I've never sold. I don't think I've ever sold a live event. So at least not like in real life live event. So I don't have enough experience there to draw on to answer that question. And Anne says, as everybody listening sits up straight all of a sudden. Yes. Okay, Bob says, I have plans for a very long, involved course. I've been teaching real estate investing at local meetups for years. Should I first sell the course in smaller segments? Yes, so if this is the first time you're putting together an online course, I do recommend starting, like, instead of trying to take all of your knowledge and package it into this huge course and sell it at a high price, try to find a more isolated issue that you can solve on a smaller scope and smaller scale and sell that first. Simply because this will help you ship more rapidly, right? You can more rapidly go to market, build an audience and so on, and that puts you in a much better position to later sell a more involved, longer online course. Look, it's a huge risk. This is something that a lot of people get stuck on this, right? And actually my next video, I'm going to talk about this, where I've met many people who are like, okay, I've been working on this product, I've been working on this course. This is a huge course. I have hundreds of lessons, all this stuff, but of course I haven't launched it yet because it's not finished and it's not perfect. And this can go on forever. So get good at getting to market first before you dive into a big project like that. JC asked about evergreen launches. Well, an evergreen launch is what you do after the real launch. This is why I'm talking about keeping it simple, doing a real launch. I mentioned this before. This puts you into a position where you can do all kinds of cool marketing stuff. And this is, to get back to the point I made earlier, where I'm saying that until you get to that point where you have a funnel where you sell your own products, none of the marketing stuff you do is really real. Because if you haven't done this already, don't even think about evergreen. Don't even think about automated webinars. Don't even think about all this advanced stuff. Don't even think about it. Get there first. Have a course that is selling, right? That's generating this income. Then comes all the fun stuff, or at least I think it's fun. I think it's really fun to start like building out and polishing and optimizing this funnel, to start adding on upsell offers, running A/B tests on your pages, trying different sequences of how do I do this funnel, what emails do I send, and so on. This is great stuff, but don't even start thinking about this unless you already have a course that's selling. So because once that's done, well, an evergreen launch is just a launch like the one I showed on the launch map, but instead of doing it live, you buy some expensive piece of software and you do it with that automatically, right? And so you can do something like that with by combining Thrive Ultimatum with your email marketing tool. There are also various systems. In fact, even GoToWebinar has like pre-recorded webinars now, and there's like Webinar Ninja and EverWebinar and so on. These tools do this for you, right? They do live events so what we're doing right now, right? I could record this video and I could in the future make it a part of a launch sequence where we do a live webinar, which is actually not live, right? Where it's just playing this recording, but it gives the people who go through the launch sequence, gives them the experience of attending a webinar. So it's really, how to do an evergreen webinar is a matter of knowing how to do a launch, plus using some fairly expensive tools, plus knowing how to Google, how do I use this tool? I don't think beyond that there's anything special about it. Yes, Tommy says, what James Schramko calls your offer that converts. Without that, nothing else matters. I agree, right? That's exactly what I'm trying to say, right? It's like until you have that, just nothing else matters. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm always talking about rapid implementation. Because again, I did this once, years ago, several times. Right? I did the first few product launches I did were to small audiences, and the first 3 product launches I did, I think one of them was very, very successful. One of them was a bit of a dud. One of them was pretty successful. But the important thing is that I just kept hammering, right? I just kept making them. I kept shipping. That's the important thing. You've got to get there before any of this other stuff comes in. All right, let's see. Okay, Daniel asks an interesting question, right? How long does it take to develop a list that's, let's say, large enough for a launch? If you put in the time, if you spend 4 to 8 hours per day, YouTube, blogs, guest content, etc. 4 to 8 hours a day. Listen, if you work productively, right? If you know how to prioritize your work, and you work 4 hours a day on building an audience, and you do this strategically well, you can get serious results with this in a span of, let's say, 2 to 3 months. I think if you do this, right, if you can actually work productively, within 3 months you can build up a serious audience. But the conundrum here is, right now I'm thinking in my head like, oh, we could do a case study on this, right? How quickly can you build an audience from scratch in a new niche? But the thing is, of course, that I know many ways to do this, and I have, again, the skill of being able to churn out a lot of content is very helpful. But of course, when you start, you don't have those skills yet. And the reason I mention this is, I think on the one hand, I do want to, I want to make it clear that building an audience is not, it doesn't have to be this huge obstacle. And for sure, if you know what you're doing, you do it very strategically, you can do it quickly, relatively quickly anyway. But you also have to be accepting of your own learning curve and your own, the time it takes to learn things. And so I think rather than it being, having to be like, oh, I have to build this massive mailing list as quickly as possible, it's fine to do the work that you need to do in order to build those skills. Like, I started a blog years and years and years ago where my primary goal was just I wanted to be a better writer. So I was just like, I'm going to start a blog, not because I'm hoping to turn this into a business, but just so that I get some practice writing. And I then also started doing, I started exploring how do I get more visitors to my blog. And my learning for how to build up my audience wasn't like the optimal, I wasn't like doing the ideal 4 to 8 hours of work, super focused, building the audience as fast as possible, because I didn't have the experience yet. But that's also fine. Like, it can take time as long as you keep moving forward. The most important thing, I think, is to have this forward momentum where you're just doing things and then doing more things and doing more things, and you're giving yourself this volume of experience that will help you learn and that will help you build these skills. I think that's the most important thing. Okay, Anne has another question about memberships. So I talked about that previously already. I have online courses, but essentially I only sell them in conjunction with live video coaching packages. Well, I would recommend that you at least test separating the coaching from the course, so that people can buy the course, or they can buy the course and the coaching at a higher price. Just making that split might actually lead to more revenue. So case study on building an audience, we're probably going to do that. I'm not sure when we'll get around to doing that, but probably this year. I'm also going to be doing some YouTube experiments, which also go in the direction of audience building. And so that is something I'm interested in doing. And I think it'd be interesting to do, right? How do we build up an audience? I think we will do that. But in terms, don't hold your breath for it, right? Because I've got a lot of stuff lined up for this year. So it's not going to come immediately, but it is something that's been on my mind to do that as a case study as well. All right. So listen, there's way more comments than I can keep up with. There's a lot of people are here as well, which is great. Yeah, that's amazing. There's 300 people watching this. That's more than an hour in. That's really cool. That's really awesome. So, watch the other videos basically. Watch the other videos if you haven't yet. And there's a third video coming next week on the same topic, which also answers, one of the main questions that people have been asking me, and goes more into, well, how do you actually go about turning what you know into a course. So I recorded the video on that as well, that's going to come out next week. And go to the, if you go to the Thrive Themes links for those videos, then you can also ask questions there in the comments. And I'm trying to keep up. I tried to answer all the questions, but I couldn't quite keep up. But like I say, I try to keep up, and I hope this was useful. I tried to address as many questions as possible. But at this point, let's call it a day. So thank you very much for joining. And I think a replay of this should be available on YouTube, I hope. So, but that's it. Thank you very much for joining. It's been a pleasure. It's really great to have everyone. It's really great to see that you're asking intelligent questions. That you are. I also love seeing that many people are saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I have courses, I have memberships, I have this. That's awesome. I love seeing people taking action, and I really hope that some of the content I make can help you, help you build that business, help you build a better business and create this kind of freedom machine for yourself, right? That I think we're all after with entrepreneurship. So thank you very much for spending your time with me. I don't take that for granted. Thank you very much for your time. And yeah, I hope I see you next week in our third video on the topic of rapid launch. All right, see you soon.